911 call. The tragic story of Kyle Plush. At 3:16 p.m. on April 10, 2018, a 16-year-old named Kyle Plush called 911 from his phone. Just moments before, he had a freak accident after arriving at Seven Hills School in Cincinnati, Ohio, for a tennis match. Kyle was driving a 2004 Honda Odyssey minivan, with his gear stored in the back. To grab his equipment, he climbed into the back and leaned over the third-row seats. Suddenly, the seat's folding mechanism engaged, causing it to collapse. Kyle was trapped, upside down, unable to move his arms or reach his cell phone. Thankfully, his phone had Siri, and he called out for help. "Where are you?" the operator asked, but Kyle could barely hear her. He struggled to explain his dire situation. "I can't breathe," he gasped. Time was running out, and he told the operator, "I'm going to die." Just under a minute later, the call dropped. Kyle had clearly communicated his location and his need for help. The operator dispatched a police car to the school, but unfortunately, she didn't mention how serious Kyle's situation was. The officers arrived but didn't even bother to get out of their car, simply driving around the parking lot without a clue about which vehicle was Kyle's. As they cruised the lot, Kyle made another desperate 911 call, this time sounding more urgent. "I probably don't have much time left. If I die, tell my mom I love her. I'm stuck in my van in the parking lot." He gave the exact make and model of his car, but still the officers were careless, thinking it was a prank. Despite having Kyle's phone location pinging within feet of his van, the police failed to act. They left the parking lot, saying, "I don't see nobody." Tragically, just minutes later, Kyle went silent, and the call ended for the last time. It took 6 hours for Kyle's father to find him in the trunk of the minivan, where he had been trapped for hours. Kyle had done everything right. He was calm, respectful, and clearly explained his situation. Sadly, the police didn't take him seriously. Due to this mishandling, Kyle's parents, Jill and Ron, were awarded a $6 million settlement from the city of Cincinnati. More importantly, they dedicated themselves to ensuring that such mishaps never happen again. They now consult with emergency call centers to share Kyle's story, turning their tragedy into a mission for change. Kyle's story remains a painful reminder of the mistakes made that day, forever captured in the recordings of his calls, a life lost due to indifference. Hide and seek. The fatal game night on April 4, 2020, in Baltimore, Maryland. A man named Ernest Wilson went live on Facebook, excited for another game night with friends. With lockdowns in place across the U.S., Ernest wanted to create a fun atmosphere for everyone. This time, he hosted the event at an Airbnb and invited friends to join his games, including a drinking version of hide and seek. As the night progressed, Ernest reminded his friends not to invite anyone he hadn't personally invited. "If you're not on the list, you're not coming in," he joked, even calling out someone who he thought might show up uninvited. At 2 a.m., the time came for the main event, hide and seek. Ernest turned off the lights and went outside to start counting. "Ready or not, here I come," he called out, but suddenly he heard something alarming. Someone was trying to get into the front door. Assuming it was one of his friends, he ran to the backyard, where he spotted a stranger hopping over the fence. "Who are you? Get away!" he shouted, but the situation quickly escalated. The man brandished a gun and announced a robbery, and in the chaos, he shot Ernest twice. The gunman and an accomplice fled, leaving Ernest's friends unharmed. Despite the terrifying scene unfolding, the stream went dark. Ernest's murder remains unsolved, with no suspects identified even after 4.5 years. Detectives believe it might have been a robbery gone wrong, possibly motivated by Ernest's social media posts about his lifestyle. Some speculate that the robbers might have even been someone he knew. What's chilling is how these strangers appeared at the Airbnb, despite Ernest not sharing the address publicly. As the robbery unfolded, you could hear one of his friends laughing in the background, not realizing the danger they were in. This incident serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly a fun night can turn tragic. With so many questions left unanswered, Ernest's story lingers in the shadows, a painful memory of a life cut short. Before we jump into today's case, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Factor. I have a bad habit of not planning my meals, which often leaves me scrambling for dinner and ordering unhealthy takeout. But thanks to Factor, I'm changing that. Factor delivers fresh, chef-prepared meals that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. No stress, no prep work. They taste incredible, even better than the takeout I used to rely on, and they're healthier too. My favorite part? I save time. I no longer spend half an hour figuring out what to eat because everything I need is right there. You choose how many meals you want, and just like that, most of your week is planned. Plus, you can pause or change your deliveries anytime, hassle-free. Here's the cool part. Factor is now part of HelloFresh, which is another one of my favorite meal services. I can't wait to get back to cooking with HelloFresh too. If you want to try Factor, visit factor75.com or click the link in the description. Use the code NickCrowley50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month's orders. That's NickCrowley50 at factor75.com for a great deal. Nika Venant case. Now, let's move on to today's story, which is truly heartbreaking. On January 22, 2017, a 14-year-old girl named Nika Venant went live on Facebook. In her stream, she opened up about how tough her life had been. She had been moved in and out of many foster homes, facing poor and sometimes abusive treatment. Nika expressed her wish for it all to be over. As her live stream continued, hundreds of people tuned in. But sadly, the comments were cruel. Instead of showing support, many mocked her and laughed, treating her pain as a joke. Tragically, Nika followed through on her intentions while still on camera. The chat didn't stop there. Instead of expressing sympathy, it turned even uglier once it was clear she had passed away. Some people who knew her even made parody videos mocking her death. It took over an hour for the police to arrive and shut down the live stream. The saddest part of all? Nika said she just wanted to be with her real mother, whom she loved dearly. After her death, her mother, Gina Alexis, claimed she also wanted to be reunited with Nika. During a news conference, Gina broke down, blaming the foster care system for failing to keep her daughter safe. However, investigators later revealed something shocking. On the day Nika died, Gina was actually watching the live stream. She witnessed the online mockery and even commented along with the cruel crowd, saying things like, "It doesn't matter if you live or die, it gets worse." Nika had been taken from her mother after suffering abuse at a young age. Despite Nika reaching out for her mother's love and attention, Gina often pushed her away, claiming Nika was no longer her responsibility. In an even stranger twist, after Nika's tragic passing, her Facebook account remained active. Gina took control of it and started posting content, even trying to defend her actions and promote her podcast, as if seeking sympathy for the loss of her daughter while ignoring her own role in Nika's suffering. Now let's switch gears to a different story. On June 11, 2009, a young man named Eugene L. shared a post on an urban exploration forum, introducing the mysterious catacombs beneath Odessa, Ukraine. These catacombs are the largest in the world, stretching over 2,500 kilometers, far bigger than the famous Paris catacombs. During many people hid there, and even today, explorers can stumble upon forgotten weapons or even bodies. Eugene's post included eerie photos of the dark, winding tunnels. Curious fellow explorers were amazed and wanted to see more. He warned them that many get lost, and some even die down there. To intrigue them further, Eugene mentioned a shocking photo he had of a young girl who had lost her way in the maze. As it turned out, this story dates back to New Year's Eve in 2004, when a group of teenagers decided to celebrate down in the catacombs. They entered through a nearby school, where the entrance was left open. While they were drinking and having fun, one girl wandered off to find a restroom, but ended up getting lost and completely alone. She cried out, but the tunnels were too twisted and confusing. Each step led her deeper into darkness. Her friends tried to find her, or maybe they didn't. We can't be sure. In their drunken state, they left the tunnels without her and never went back to look for her. Even if she had a flashlight, it wouldn't have lasted long. For days, she wandered through that pitch-black maze, likely delirious, until, after what must have been 3 terrible days, she passed away. Her body was later found about 3 miles from the nearest exit. Looking at one of the few maps of the tunnel system, it was clear she never stood a chance. Maybe dehydration or hypothermia took her life, but some believe her skull was caved in, suggesting she desperately hit her head against the wall in an attempt to escape her torment. Her name was Masha, and she was only 19 years old. 3 months later, in April 2005, a man named L and his friends stumbled upon her body and reported it to the police. But law enforcement refused to go into the tunnels to recover her, knowing how dangerous and unmapped they were. It took 2 long years before her body was finally recovered, thanks to a friend of L who wrote a strong letter to the government, including a photo of Masha's body. The story is chilling. Imagine being trapped in a place like that with no way out. It must be one of the worst ways to die. Because of the gruesome nature of the tale and the haunting photo, it spread online, turning into a legendary mystery. Many questions lingered. Were Masha's friends involved in her death? Did they leave her there on purpose? Did L know more than he claimed? But the most pressing question arose in 2015, 10 years after the photo was taken. Journalist Mike Pearl took up the case for a Halloween article for Vice and discovered something strange. Masha didn't seem to exist. Pearl found no proof that a girl named Masha ever went missing in that area. There were no death records or reports of a body being pulled from the catacombs during that time. Something didn't add up. As the photo circulated, a prominent explorer of the Odessa catacombs stated on his website that aside from the original photographer, no one, not even law enforcement, could confirm Masha's story. He suggested it might just be a prank, and the corpse could be fake. After this revelation, Pearl tracked down Nat, who couldn't recall where the body was found or how to contact others in the photo, none of whom ever stepped forward to support his claims. This made the credibility of L and his story about Masha very shaky. However, one thing is clear. The corpse in the photo looks very real and matches the decay of bodies found in similar environments. Interestingly, the Odessa explorer eventually deleted his statement, leading many to believe this was indeed a real corpse. But if Masha's story is false, then who was this person? We still have no idea. The reality is that bodies have been found in these catacombs before. Many explorers have gotten lost and faced the same fate as Masha. These tunnels have also been used as dumping grounds for murder victims. It's frustrating because we may never know who this body belonged to or how they died. Many doubt that the body was ever recovered, simply due to a lack of information and news reports. It's possible that this corpse is still lost down there, buried by time, as sections of the catacombs have been known to flood and collapse, sealing them off forever. So for now, the story of Masha remains an internet mystery. In September 1985, a hunter trekked through the woods of Christie Creek, Montana, searching for something big. He was hunting a large black bear and managed to shoot it. The bear ran off, leaving a trail of blood, which the hunter followed through the remote area. Instead of finding the bear, he stumbled upon a shallow ditch where he discovered a body, not the bear, but a woman, reduced to bones. The remains were sent for forensic analysis, but little could be determined other than that she was a young woman and had been murdered. 2 bullet holes were found in her skull. With almost no other information to work with, a special FBI team created a composite sketch of what this Jane Doe might have looked like. They later named her Christie, or Crystal Creek. Their first attempt at depicting her was haunting. Recently, I've been drawn into a rabbit hole of disturbing police sketches and recreations. While these can be helpful and sometimes lead to successful identifications, many sketches appear almost unrecognizable. One of the most notorious examples came decades later, in June 2014. Highway workers mowing grass in Geneva, Wisconsin, discovered 2 strange-smelling suitcases. Inside were the bodies of 2 women in various stages of decomposition, both believed to have been strangled. One woman was quickly identified as 37-year-old Laura Simonson, while the other was harder to identify due to her condition. Even though her facial features were difficult to distinguish, the police still tried to create a sketch. This particular case became infamous, with the woman's face turning into a meme and even appearing in a video game. But there's one example that has haunted me. In April 1977, a couple returned to their abandoned cabin in Alberta, Canada, to empty the septic tank. To their horror, they found a body floating inside. The condition of the body was brutal. It showed signs of severe torture. The man had been beaten, mutilated, burned with cigarettes, and shot multiple times. Due to the state of the remains, he was unidentifiable. Still, a recreation was made using a computer model of the man's skull. He was dubbed Septic Tank Sam. There's something so tragic about these composite images. These were real people with stories and names, reduced to horrifying sketches and nicknames. When it comes to victims, it's incredibly sad. But there's also a darker side when dealing with suspects. Over the years, many unidentified killers have forced law enforcement to turn to these same methods of sketching and recreating. One of the most chilling examples is the Lake Bottom killer. On June 5, 1960, 4 Finnish teenagers were camping by Lake Bottom, sleeping peacefully in their tent, when suddenly they were attacked. It happened in an instant. A man with a knife began stabbing through the tent and then bludgeoning the group with an unidentified object. That night, 3 of the teens were killed, while one managed to survive with serious injuries. When asked about the attacker, the lone survivor described a man in black with large red eyes. Based on his account and other potential sightings, a sketch of the suspect was made. The results were unusual, earning the man the nickname Bogomlip due to his strange features, especially his eyes. All of these recreations have an eerie quality that makes you wonder, do they actually help? Surprisingly, of the 4 victims from these cases, 3 have been identified. Christie Crystal Creek was later identified as Janet Lee Lucas, a 23-year-old who became the last known victim of serial killer Wayne Nance, thanks to improved forensic genealogy. The second was Jenny Gomez, identified as one of the women found in the suitcases, strangled by Stephen Zillick, the Wisconsin suitcase murderer. Despite her recreation looking nothing like her, it was the reason she was identified. One of her family members recognized her distinct cheekbones. Finally, there's Septic Tank Sam, who was revealed to be Garden Edwin Sanderson, also identified through genetic genealogy. A DNA sample from his sister confirmed his identity. However, we still don't know who killed him or why. This leaves us with one last unsolved mystery: the killer of at least 3 people. Despite the strange features of the suspect, he has never been positively identified. But even if he hasn't been officially linked to the case, he may have been photographed. After the teens were murdered, a funeral was held to remember them, and a crowd gathered. In a photo taken at the funeral, a man with impossible features stands among the mourners. This man was never photographed again, and his connection to the murders has never been confirmed, leaving these tragic cases unsolved to this day.